I took the job because I needed money. That's the simple truth. The advertisement online made it sound easy enough. Night receptionist at a small hotel just outside the city. Quiet location, minimal responsibilities, mostly monitoring cameras and checking in the occasional late guest. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was better than most night jobs. What the advertisement didn't mention was the third floor. My first night started at 11 p.m. The Riverside Hotel stood near the edge of a quiet highway, surrounded by trees and an empty parking lot that looked much larger than necessary. The building itself had probably been built sometime in the 1970s. The architecture had that strange mixture of faded luxury and quiet neglect. Yellow lights glowed weakly in the lobby when I walked in for the first time. Behind the front desk stood the manager, a tall man named Daniel who looked like he hadn't slept properly in years. He gave me a quick tour. "The job is simple," he said. "Guests check in, guests check out. Most nights you'll see maybe 2 or 3 people." He showed me the security monitors behind the desk. 8 small screens displayed different parts of the hotel: the lobby, the parking lot, the elevators, and the 3 hallways on each floor. Then he paused for a moment. His finger hovered near one of the screens. "The third floor camera sometimes glitches," he said casually. "If it goes black, just ignore it." Something about the way he said that stuck with me, but I didn't ask questions. At midnight, Daniel left the building, and suddenly, the entire hotel felt much larger. The silence in the lobby was heavy. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the vending machines and the occasional passing car outside. For the first hour, nothing happened. At around 1:15 a.m., a tired-looking truck driver checked in and went straight to his room. At 2 a.m., the building was completely quiet again. That's when the elevator opened. I looked up from the computer. The elevator doors slid apart slowly. No one stepped out. I stared at the empty space for several seconds before the doors closed again. Old elevator, I thought. No big deal. Then one of the security monitors flickered. The camera, labeled third floor hallway, turned to static. The screen buzzed softly. I remembered what Daniel had said. If it goes black, just ignore it. So I did. At least I tried. Around 2:40 a.m., the phone rang. The sound echoed through the empty lobby. I picked it up. Front desk. Silence. Then a voice spoke. Quiet. Slow. Almost whispering. "Someone is walking in the hallway." The voice sounded like an older woman. "What room are you calling from?" I asked. 312, she replied. I checked the computer. Room 312 was on the 3rd floor. My eyes slowly moved toward the static security monitor. The screen was still flickering. "What seems to be the problem, ma'am?" I asked. "There's someone outside my door," she whispered. My stomach tightened slightly. "Do they look like a guest?" Another pause. "I can't see their face." A cold feeling crept down my spine. "I'll come check," I said. I grabbed the spare keycard and walked toward the elevator. The ride to the 3rd floor felt longer than it should have. When the doors opened, the hallway was dimly lit by weak ceiling lights. Room numbers ran along the walls in faded brass plates. 308, 310, 312. I walked slowly toward the door. It was closed. I knocked. "Front desk," I said. A moment later, I heard footsteps approaching. The door slowly opened and the woman stepped out, pale and trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. I thought someone was watching me." I glanced down the hallway. Nothing. Just shadows stretching and flickering under the weak light. I led her to the elevator, trying to act calm. As we descended, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following us. A soft shuffling, like slow footsteps, echoed faintly behind us. But when I turned, there was nothing. Back in the lobby, I returned behind the desk, my heart still pounding. That night, and the nights after, the same pattern repeated. At around 2:30 a.m., The elevator would open on its own. The phone sometimes rang, whispering warnings I couldn't understand. Shadows moved strangely on the third floor, stretching in ways that didn't make sense. I never saw the figure in person again, only on the security monitors. Its presence felt heavier every night, like the building itself was aware I was there. A week passed, and I started noticing small, subtle things. Objects on the front desk would shift slightly when I wasn't looking. The temperature in the lobby would drop suddenly. My breath would appear in the air even though the heater was running. I tried to rationalize it all. Maybe it was an old building, drafty corridors, faulty wiring. But deep down, I knew something else was going on. One night, I decided to stay longer than my shift. I wanted to see if I could catch whatever was happening on the third floor. Around 2:15 a.m., I took the elevator up alone. The car creaked as it climbed. When I stepped out on the third floor, the hallway stretched before me, dim and silent. The shadows seemed alive, moving slightly, even though the lights were steady. Room numbers passed slowly as I walked. 301, 303, 305, then 307. The door at the end of the hallway, room 312, was slightly ajar. A faint light flickered from inside. I froze. My stomach twisted. I didn't remember any guest checking in there. Curiosity and fear battled inside me. I stepped closer, the carpet muffling my steps. A soft whisper drifted through the air. "Do not enter." My hand trembled as I pushed the door open. Inside, the room appeared normal. The bed was made, the furniture was in place, and the curtains hung limp over the window. But there was something wrong. The air felt thick, heavy, and in the corner, a dark silhouette stood, motionless, its head tilted slightly, as if studying me. I couldn't see a face, only darkness where it should have been. I swallowed hard, and the figure vanished instantly. My heart pounded as I backed out of the room, my mind racing. Was I imagining things? Could my exhaustion be playing tricks on me? I didn't have time to think further because the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening bang. I ran down the hallway toward the elevator. The lights flickered violently, casting long, grotesque shadows across the walls. I could hear something moving just behind me, soft, deliberate footsteps echoing in the corridor. The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside, my hands shaking. As the doors closed, I glanced back at the hallway through the small window in the elevator. For a brief moment, the silhouette reappeared at the end of the hall, watching me, and then it vanished into the darkness. Back in the lobby, I sat behind the desk, trying to calm myself. My hands trembled, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't go home like this every night. Something about that hotel was wrong. I resolved to leave early the next morning and never come back. But that night, just before dawn, the phone rang. I hesitated, then answered. "Front desk." The voice on the line was low, distorted, almost as if it was coming from the walls themselves. "You can't leave. The night has chosen you." The line went dead. The next week was a blur of fear and exhaustion. I tried to ignore the noises, the whispers, the shadows. I avoided the third floor whenever possible, staying at the front desk and watching the cameras. But every night, the elevator would open at 2:30 a.m. and the same silhouette would appear briefly on the monitor, always at the end of the hallway. It never moved toward the camera, but the feeling of being watched was unbearable. Sleep became impossible. I couldn't think clearly during the day. I felt trapped, as if something had attached itself to me, something that wouldn't let me go. One night I noticed a new detail on the monitor. The hallway outside room 312 seemed different. The walls were longer, stretching impossibly, like the building itself had changed. The shadows moved unnaturally. Then I saw it. Dozens of figures, barely visible, standing silently in the distance. They didn't approach. They didn't move. They just watched. And then one by one, they disappeared into the walls, leaving only darkness. I felt bile rise in my throat. The hotel wasn't just haunted. It was alive, feeding on fear, on attention, on those who dared to stay too long. I tried to leave once. I packed my bag and headed to the elevator. The doors slid open and I stepped inside. The car shuddered violently, lights flickering. I pressed the button for the lobby. Nothing happened. Then, from the speakers inside the elevator, a whisper. "You belong to the night now." The elevator dropped several floors in seconds, throwing me against the wall. When the doors finally opened, I wasn't in the lobby. I was back on the third floor. The hallway stretched endlessly, the lights dim and flickering. I ran. Every door I passed seemed to whisper my name, calling me back. Panic consumed me. I reached room 312. The door swung open slowly, revealing darkness inside, thicker than any shadow I had ever seen. I screamed and bolted past it, down the hall, until finally, exhausted, I collapsed near the stairwell. The hotel didn't seem to care. Its silence was deafening, its darkness oppressive. I realized then that leaving was not enough. The building would always reach for me, always call to me, always watch. And every night, when I closed my eyes, I could still see the flickering monitor, the hallway stretching endlessly, and the figures waiting in the shadows. I took the job because I needed money.